That means new games to play. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, the top 10 new games of January 2022. Starting out with number 10 is God of War landing on the PC, the PlayStation 4's swan song, which, to be completely clear, is actually still fairly graphically impressive, especially given the fact it is a last generation game, is landing on the PC, and with it come a number of improvements. For instance, while the resolution was checkerboard 4K on the PlayStation 4, even the PS4 Pro and the PlayStation 5, we're seeing true 4K resolution with unlocked frame rates. Another thing I'm happy about is they're supporting NVIDIA DLSS for it. They're increasing the shadow resolution, and the screen space reflections are apparently better as well. Now, does this make the game better? It really depends on what you're looking for. It's a fantastic game. I think little improvements to the graphics like this are going to be enjoyable, but for the most part, it's just nice to have God of War on another platform. That's landing on the PC on January 14th. At number 9 is Kingdom of the Dead, an FPS that has a very interesting look. It bills itself as a hand-drawn FPS in which you are fighting hordes of basically undead who are coming from portals from Death's realm. Your job is, of course, to stop this from happening. Kingdom of the Dead promises some old-school shooter action, while at the same time decidedly departing from what we know from almost any shooter aesthetic. And to me, it looks like a very unique blend of old and new, as well as something really that we haven't seen aesthetically before. There's a demo of it, and it's certainly a good-looking game. It has a customizable color palette, which you can really create some interesting effects with. And I'll say the gameplay really does evoke a sort of older style Heretic feel, although you don't really have magic powers per se. I don't know, it's one I'm definitely gonna play because it's very intriguing. The demo's good. You have to go through a little rigmarole to get the demo, but it is worth it. And I suspect the final late January release of Kingdom of the Dead on the PC is probably going to be pretty good. And number 8 is the Anacrusis, or what we could appropriately call Space for Dead, or Left for Space. It's a 4-player cooperative first-person shooter where you and several other players are stranded on a huge ship way out in deep space. As it turns out, there are hordes of aliens in this area who board your ship, and all 4 of you think, oh, it might be good to attempt to defend ourselves. Now, the 2 main selling points of this game are the wild weapons and the fact that the game is run by an AI driver, and therefore you never play the same battle twice. Now, what we have here is an early access game landing in January that is billing the experience that they're selling right now as Season 1, and that there will be an unfolding mystery over several seasons, which is interesting, but at the moment I'd even say that the game itself as a single season looks intriguing. It's certainly got an interesting look to it, something that I would bill as unique. If I were to play this game a lot, I would certainly call it its own look and probably compare other games to it. I could even see people ripping off this look, which is good because, like I said, it also looks like it could be called Left for Space, so to speak. We'll see if that's a good thing or a bad thing when the Anacrusis lands on PC on January 13th. And number 7 is Warno, short for Warning Order, which is billed as a spiritual successor to the developer's Wargame trilogy, and goes back a few more years into the past, where Wargame Red Dragon took place in 1991, Warno takes place in 1989. It's essentially an RTS in an alternate history World War III era 1980s. Fans of the developer will be very excited to know that a 10v10 multiplayer mode is being included, drawing inspiration from their Steel Division series. Steel Division, however, took place in the World War II era, whereas this is in the 1980s, where there are a large number of improvements in terms of warfare that should add a lot to the chaos of that mode. Warno is, of course, coming to the PC. It's landing on Steam in early access on January 20th. And number 6 is Diplomacy is Not an Option, which is telling you basically everything you need to know about the game. It is a battle. Well, I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that, though. Not quite a real-time strategy game. It's a simple city builder and a tower defense game that integrates some various strategy elements into a mix that is actually really fun. There is a demo available now. You should check it out if you're interested in it, because it's kind of what sold me on this. It's not that I don't like the sort of detailed simulation of diplomacy and the various minutia of Civilization and other city building strategy games, but sometimes you don't really realize you need a change, and it becomes a very welcome one, and that is basically what I would build this game as. It's got a nice, unique, low poly look to it. It's very colorful, and it's got some really overpowered, frankly bizarre special attacks, and all this comes together to something frankly pretty unique. I'd recommend playing the demo now. I think it's a ton of fun. Diplomacy is Not an Option releases on PC January 26th. And number 5 is Monster Hunter Rise, which is now making its way to the PC. Now this is good because Monster Hunter Rise is kind of a development on the idea that came to fruition in Monster Hunter World. They sort of streamlined a few things in World and opened up the world, obviously, that was the point. And Rise adds verticality to that, and wow, is it ever a good idea. It really works well in Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter Rise was previously completely exclusive to Switch, and will remain so in terms of consoles, to my knowledge. But it's also coming to PC now, and that's great because the one complaint you might have on the Switch is that the graphics aren't that incredible. On the PC, they're upping the resolution, giving us better textures, keyboard and mouse support, etc., etc. This is stuff that will make Monster Hunter Rise an overall better game. Not that it's not great on the Switch, because it is genuinely a very good game. It's just nice to see that Monster Hunter Rise is coming to PC on January 12th. At number 4 is Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection, which brings us the two most recent Uncharted games, Uncharted 4, Thieves' End, and Uncharted The Lost Legacy. Now, both of these games are incredible, and they've gone ahead and, to at least some extent, remastered them. I don't think, personally, I'm finding any, major graphical differences, but the resolution's definitely better, it's definitely running better, and I'm sure that there are improvements in terms of textures and other various elements. I'm interested to see exactly how far they went, considering how good the games originally looked, but I'm actually kind of just happier all around that you'll be able to play these on both PlayStation 5 and on PC on January 28th. At number 3 is Hidden Deep, a very, very different looking game in which you take control over 4 crew members who are going a mile below the ocean's surface searching for a lost crew. Now, what you find down there is, of course, aliens, among other things like physics puzzles, terrain to traverse, exploration, and a number of what I would call pretty new takes on something that could have easily just been another Metroidvania, but this indie game takes it much further than that, and frankly, it's something to be excited about. I think that this looks very different. Between all the various contraptions you have control over and the types of aliens it looks like you're going to be dealing with, particularly some of the fake outs you see in the trailer, this looks like it's going to be one that keeps you guessing. Hidden Deep lands on Steam Early Access on January 24th. And number 2 is Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Extraction, which is an expansion on a mode that we saw in Rainbow Six Siege back in 2018 called Outbreak. Now, that mode is pretty good, but Rainbow Six Extraction is kind of a sci-fi standalone game that doesn't actually focus on player versus player, but instead gives us sort of 3-player co-op Rainbow Six tactical action in the context of the scenario that we are familiar with Outbreak. Now, this is not a takeoff on Left 4 Dead. This is a Rainbow Six game. So you're going to see a slower pace than you might be used to. And I think that's a very interesting idea because a lot of the genre itself is made up kind of Left 4 Dead aspirants as well as spiritual successors. Now, that is by no means an insult. There's a ton of great games. I play a lot of those games. They're a lot of fun. But this is just something different that I think could very well be very worthwhile as its own game. Rainbow Six Extraction is landing on just about everything, the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and the PC on January 20th. And finally, at number 1 is Pokemon Legends Arceus, an action RPG that preserves a lot of what we know about Pokemon, for instance, capturing Pokemon, and takes it back to the 19th century of the Sinnoh region. The objective of the game is to create the first Pokédex. In some ways, it looks like Pokemon Breath of the Wild, but it's also become quite a popular way of describing certain types of open world games, and we don't know exactly that that's going to be how it turns out. It does look very interesting though, and I do look forward to playing it when it comes out on the Switch January